If you had to guess which part of the government affects your home, your job, your wallet, and your family, who would you guess? The president? Congress? Believe it or not, the people with the most direct impact on your everyday life are actually here in Texas, presiding in our courtrooms. The United States has a dual court system with a federal court and individual state courts. While they both lead to the U.S. Supreme Court, only about 70 to 80 cases are heard at that level on an annual basis. There are three main levels within the federal and state courts: trial courts, appellate courts, and the Supreme Court. Texas also has an additional court equal to the Texas Supreme Court called the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, but not all states have this additional court. The federal courts hear only cases regarding the U.S. Constitution, federal laws, or disputes between states. State courts handle about 90% of cases like family and property law, contract disputes, and criminal cases. Let's dive into the federal court system first. There are 870 federal judges in the U.S. that are nominated by the president, approved by the Senate, and serve a lifetime appointment.
Article 2, Section 2 of the United States Constitution empowers the president to select a nominee to fill a vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States. This responsibility is one of the most significant duties assigned to the president by the Constitution. A Supreme Court justice has life tenure, unlike the president.
Out of those 870 federally appointed lifetime judges, 9 serve on the Supreme Court. 179 serve in the U.S. Court of Appeals. 677 serve in the U.S. District Courts. And 9 serve in the U.S. Court of International Trade. A president typically appoints an average of 160 to 230 federal judges per term. Most nominations are confirmed by the Senate. These appointed judges then hire over 900 federal magistrate and bankruptcy judges who serve fixed terms.
So one of the most important responsibilities of a president is to nominate qualified men and women to serve as judges on the federal bench.
What is the trade-off of federal judges being nominated as opposed to elected and serving for life? They never have to ask for campaign money, which makes them independent. But because they're not elected by the people, they don't necessarily have to be accountable to the people. Texas takes the exact opposite approach. To ensure its judges are directly accountable to the public, Texas relies on partisan elections. And that's just the beginning of how the Lone Star State does things differently. Now let's dive into the Texas court system. Unlike the federal system, Texas has a rare structure with 2 co-equal top courts set up by Article 5 of the Texas Constitution. The Texas Supreme Court is for civil cases, while the Court of Criminal Appeals is for criminal cases. Below the Texas Supreme Court and the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, you have the Texas Courts of Appeals. There are 15 courts of appeals, with 1 through 14 being regional. The brand new 15th Court of Appeals has a statewide jurisdiction for large corporate cases. Here in Spicewood, the 3rd Court of Appeals is our regional court. This court handles all standard civil and criminal appeals from 24 Texas counties, including Travis, Burnett, and Blanco. The district courts are Texas's premier trial courts. If a major legal battle begins, like a felony trial, a land dispute, or a divorce, this is the first courtroom the public actually steps into. If you live in Burnett or Blanco County, you may be served by the 33rd or the 424th Judicial District Court. If you live in the Travis County side of Spicewood, it is divided strictly by legal specialization, as opposed to geography. There are 504 district court judges in Texas. Each district court is run by exactly 1 judge, elected to a 4-year term. Unlike federal judges who serve for life, Texas judges must run for re-election every 4 to 6 years. From our 2 highest state courts down to your local justice of the peace, they campaign, raise money, and run with an R or a D next to their name. Your vote is the ultimate check on this system, and their decisions profoundly impact you. These courts have the final word on everything from child custody and property disputes to criminal charges and death penalty cases. Voting for these seats is one of the most important things you can do. But because Texas no longer allows straight-ticket voting, you have to manually select each one. If you don't have time to research every individual name, use their party affiliation as a window into their core values. Don't stop at the top of the ticket and let others choose your local judges for you. Keep scrolling, keep voting, and finish your ballot this November. But don't take it from us. Listen to our local judicial expert, Holly Taylor, who is currently running for place 9 on the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. She is a criminal defense attorney who spent over 17 years as a prosecutor, most recently serving in the Travis County District Attorney's Office.
How can a ruling from one judge affect 1,000 people?
Well, if it's a class action suit, it can most definitely affect many, many people. District judges make decisions in various cases. They make rulings which can decide how laws are interpreted, how company practices will be implemented, whether people are going to be compensated for injuries that they've suffered, whether someone who's accused of a serious crime will go to prison or not go to prison. How victims will be treated in our communities. There's so many ways in which the decisions of judges impact us personally. And that's just the judges at the lower level. When you get to the higher court judges or appeals court judges, they make rulings that interpret how constitutional provisions and laws will be applied to all of us. And especially when you get to the very highest level, the Texas Supreme Court and the Court of Criminal Appeals, when they make a decision about what confusing language in a law means, or whether the First Amendment or another constitutional provision applies to certain conduct, that law sets a precedent. That ruling sets a precedent, and that precedent has to be followed by all the other courts in Texas, by law enforcement, by government, and everyone in our communities. So they have tremendous power over all of our lives.
Can you give me an example of that?
I don't think we're ever as profoundly impacted by a branch of government as when we're sitting in a courtroom waiting to find out who is going to have custody of our child, or when we're sitting in a courtroom waiting to find out whether our child who may have been charged with a crime will go to prison or not, or we're sitting in a courtroom waiting to find out whether someone who's been accused of harming someone in our family is going to go to prison or not. These are critical decisions that judges make every day, and many more like them. And those decisions are perhaps the most involved that we ever get in government. And yet, when people go to the ballot box, they often skip judicial races.
How do I find the value that my judge that I'm voting for has?
Well, that's a great question, because in Texas, unlike lots of other states, and certainly unlike our federal system, in Texas, we elect our judges in partisan races. That means when judges are on your ballot, they'll have an R or a D next to them. So that tells you what political party they are affiliated with. And knowing that does give you a little bit of information about the judge, even if you know nothing else. Even though judges are prohibited by the Code of Judicial Conduct from talking about any specific issues or cases that might come before their court, it's really critical that we have judges who don't have a bias when they walk in the door. Nonetheless, because they're affiliated with a political party, you can look at that party's platform, which is available online.
Why is the Texas ballot so long when I go to vote?
In Texas, we elect a lot of positions that are not on the ballot in other states and certainly aren't elected in the federal government. One of those areas is that instead of a unitary executive, like in the federal government, the president is elected, but then the president appoints, with the confirmation of the Senate, the heads of the different large agencies within the government. In other words, the cabinet. He appoints the cabinet, and they have to be approved by the Senate. But in Texas, we elect most of those people. So we don't just elect the governor and the lieutenant governor. We're going to elect the people who are heading, like our comptroller and our attorney general and positions like that. We elect those positions in Texas. Also, for the same reason, Texans want to elect our judges. Judges have an incredible amount of power over our lives. Judges on the local level with our district and county courts, all the way up to the top courts in Texas, the Texas Supreme Court and the Court of Criminal Appeals. These courts have a tremendous amount of power and impact over our lives, and Texans have enshrined the ability to elect these officials in our state constitution. So in fact, it may seem like a burden when we go to the ballot box and we have this long ballot, but in fact, it's a privilege because we get to pick people who are qualified and who are going to be fair and unbiased and independent to preside over our courts. So it's a long ballot in 2026, but it is not just a task to have to vote in these races. It's a privilege because we get the chance to vote for great judges who are going to be fair and unbiased and qualified and are going to uphold the rule of law for these races.